So we'll start immediately. I will just call our panelists to come. Peter, Sanjay, Surab, if you're here. Yeah. And Yongsheng, if you are with us too. Thank you. So we have the great chance to have 4 great professionals for this session. This is about driving transformation, exploring modernization, innovation in systems and processes for future success. First of all, you are many people here. I have observed you during the first session, and many of you are taking pictures. What I suggest, maybe Max and I will ask the organization, so InsurTech Connect Asia, to give us the list of the people who have attended. You've scanned your code. And with this, normally we should have your email addresses. And we will send over the deck. I think it's going to be better. Okay? But if you want to take a picture, do not hesitate. So my name is Nicolas Michelot. I'm a digital proposition leader at Celent. I'm not from Asia. I'm based in Switzerland. I have been with Celent for more than 15 years now. I've been in the insurance industry for 25 years, more than 25 years. And as part of my activities at Celent, I tend to like the idea of dealing with all the old stuff. And what we are talking here, it's kind of an old subject that is very, very essential in everything we do around technology and insurance right now. And it's going to be, in the next 10 years, very important anyway when we talk about digital transformation, in some countries, digitization. We've talked about digital acceleration during COVID. We talk about modernization of systems. These kind of stuff are very, very important. Every year we surveyed CIOs across the world in insurance, and they tell us this is a very important topic for us, and it will remain a very important topic for us in the future. So today we are very fortunate to have Yongsheng So from AIA with us. Thank you. Sanjay Karnatak from Daiichi Life. Peter Tiloka, who came from Australia just for this event, also for this session, I thank you, from Noble Oak. And Surab Chatterjee from Oona Insurance. I will just let you introduce yourself briefly, just to tell us what you're doing, your responsibilities, and then we'll directly go into the discussion. We will try to make it about 30, 45 minutes max. If you have any question during the session, just raise up your hand. Maybe also during the different topics we will introduce. If we can take some questions, why not? It's always good to be able to talk to different professionals on this topic.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yongshen. I look after digital transformation at AIA. So what digital transformation entails actually cuts across quite a few things, from the sexy stuff that the customers actually get in terms of the customer app or even the distributors, down to the underlying pieces like the CRMs as well as the workflow. So that's my day-to-day. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Saurabh Chatterjee. I'm the Group CTO of Oona Insurance. Just a very quick background, unlike AIA and all the names you will know. Oona is a new company. We have the mandate for PNC plus health insurance in Southeast Asia. Was seeded with $350 million US dollars capital by Warburg Pincus, which is a private equity firm. We currently have 2 assets in Indonesia and Philippines, and the idea is to create an ASEAN kind of a focus market with the insurance platform that we are creating. So while we are new, we still have the topic that that we'll discuss in terms of the legacy. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sanjay Karnatak. I am from Daiichi Life Insurance from the Asia Pac office in Singapore, and I take care of the business transformation in the digital and operations area for the Asia Pac region, which covers around 8 geographies of Daiichi in various forms. And the day-to-day is to actually explore all the possibilities around business transformation and digital and operations area. And that's what probably we'll be talking about in this topic, which is connecting a lot to my portfolio here.
Hi, I'm Peter. So I head up the underwriting department at Noble Oak, which is a pure life insurance player in Australia. I'm not a technologist.
Me neither. Me neither.
I suppose where my my interest came in, I was actually doing researching and doing a presentation for another event, and I looked at the life insurance personal statement that we use today for applicants, and then I looked at the one. I found one from I think it was 1906 that was being used, and it was pretty much the same in terms of the questions that we asked people. We don't ask about cholera or typhoid today, but we did back then. At that point, I went, we have a problem in the life industry. We are still stuck, and we need to change. And from then on, I've been on a bit of a journey to try to change things in life underwriting.
Thank you. So just to introduce the topic, we have 4 main topics, but I'm not sure we'll be able to talk about those 4 main topics. But let's tackle at least the first 2, and then we'll see whether we can combine a third and fourth. The first topic is the reasons for embarking in modernization program. And so here, I just want to say that at Celent, every year we have a program that we run, which is called Model Insurer Program, where we have a specific category which is called, with a very, I would say, cumbersome name called Legacy and Ecosystem Transformation. But when we get the inputs from all the insurance over the world, and we receive approximately 100, in this category, it's about 25-30% every year, so it's pretty big. And we ask more or less what are the main pain points you've identified that causes you to tackle this issue. And we see here internal causes, external causes. We've talked about banking system, but this is more or less the same on the insurance side, so fragmentation of IT. We've seen many insurance companies acquiring new company or building new operation in different regions, having very big difficulties to standardize, unify, or at least have a single system for all regions, all distribution channels, etc. So I think this is a pretty important topic, duplication of applications, of course, the technology that is aging, IT cost, etc., etc. You see there are different topics here. And as part also of the review of these cases, we've seen that there are very important aspects that are important to deal with when it comes to many layers, applications, data, and we've discussed data before. It's difficult to leverage data and AI if we don't have a state-of-the-art technology to do this, IT processes, infrastructure. And more or less, when we work with insurance companies, we understand that it's sometimes difficult to anticipate what are going to be the needs that will justify such technology to be implemented, and the type of components and features that need to be acquired. So this question, more or less, it's a lot of big topics, a lot of discussions about conceptualization, why we do this. And maybe this is the first question I will have for Peter. You're a non-IT guy, but if you have to consider the reasons why this is very important and based on your experience to tackle this, what would it be?
Well, like I said, I gave a reason before why I thought this is something that we need to change. But I think a lot of transformation fails, right? So according to McKinsey's survey, only 37% of transformations actually succeed. And there's numerous reasons for that. And I think probably the first one in regards to that is, there's not a clear alignment of vision or purpose, why we're undertaking this change. And when you start with misalignment across the business in terms of why, that change that needs to happen, then you're doomed to fail, because the misalignment then leads to communication problems, and then there's the roles and responsibilities are not clear, so that you need to clarify those to make sure everyone understands what they're doing. And a lot of transformation programs, there's what they call the alpha syndrome. So it's the person with the loudest voice in the room, or it's the CEO or some senior person who is saying this is how we're going to do it, and it's not always the right way. So I know I digress there in terms of the question, but I think it's important to understand that transformation is not easy, but you need to really understand what you're trying to solve. So when I started my journey and I was looking at how to improve underwriting, I needed to understand who is more likely to claim. For me to improve underwriting, I need to understand at the back end to understand who's claiming and who's claiming more and what are they claiming for, so that I could re-engineer the underwriting process. And it was very clear. So when I worked with the University of Technology, Sydney, to make this happen, they said to me, what do you want to do? I said, I've got one problem statement. Show me who's more likely to claim. And that was it. I just left it at that.
That's interesting because what you're saying is, anyway, we need to be able to have a full view of the value chain. So even though we are talking about improving underwriting, we need to think about who is going to claim, right? So Sanjay, would you also address the same way, or would you see more or less the first reasons being not necessarily purely the business side, maybe the tech side, or maybe some other operations? How do you see this?
So I think I look at it this way. Any change in an organization, especially around technology, cannot be only technology driven. So there'll be some imperatives around technology, which has to play a role. Then there'll be some business imperatives coming on top of it. These days, customer is also directly engaging. So customers also put a lot of pressure on insurers to change. So I think, and of course, there could be regulatory situations also which forces you to look for a transformation. Now, what I have observed is, if I take my example, I've done one successful transformation, which, by the way, Celent gave me an award 10 years back for. So,
Congratulations.
But that was in PNC space. Why we did it? Because the legacy was actually no longer reliable as a system. It was failing time and again. So there are some push factors which come into play many times, which I've seen. In Daiichi, for example, we have some group companies which are like 120 years old. Now they have built their legacy. They have done M&As multiple times. So sometimes M&As also make you, forces you to do some of these transformation projects to consolidate your, let's say, core platforms and some of the key, systems and solutions. The change in technology is also, as you are listed here, also gives rise to multiple solutions, possibilities of solutions. In maybe a particular transformation is not possible today. Maybe 10 years down the line, the new technologies come in and they push you gently towards transforming yourself. So I think some of these situations which I've observed lead you to take up that journey, which is not easy, as we all know. But if all things added up together, do it right, as Peter was saying, avoid pitfalls, then you can be successful in these journeys.
Thank you. Surab, so on your side, if I understand well, you work mainly on the PNC side, right? So I assume, because this is the main difference with life, at least in my experience, life insurance companies have been a bit late at transforming the systems and processes because they have less frequent interactions with the end clients. On the PNC side, this is more frequent. So more or less, these kind of big transformation programs on the PNC side have arrived before because you need to digitize the touch points, etc. Is it a reason for which you think PNC insurance companies are embarking in this kind of project, or do you see something else?
No, absolutely. Yes and no. Let me say, so PNC companies are embarking on these because it's imperative, of course, the customer is demanding it. More importantly, whether it's life or whether it's general or PNC or health, my belief is that insurance companies still lag, and I've been an insurer 25 years, right? So the customer is demanding the products in a different way. We still have the product focus. very specifically, whether it's PNC, if you see the largest lines are motor or property or health, whether in life, you have the, obviously the investment aspect or the term life, but I don't think we have done enough as an industry overall on the consumer side. And that's the imperative or the need. Now look, our case is a very simple case. We are an M&A model. So I don't have control over what stack comes in, what tech stack comes in. And hence, while the consumer is demanding right at the top end, right, we had to innovate on the mid and the back office. And that's what we have done. Right? And we'll talk more about it. But the back office core pass is where I don't have control over. And hence, we created the whole mid office stack. The front end is where the whole data and experience we are trying to control and own. And that's where Oona is creating insurance as a service stack. These are modular, composable set of platforms which could be readily used across distribution channels. Because these days, again, we keep talking about omni-channel. Omni-channel, cross-sell, upsell insurance has been talking forever. But do we really do it, and how much percentage are we actually enabling in the entire value chain? So that's the endeavor for us, and that's what we are doing. To your question, is the consumer demanding it? Of course, PNC companies need to do it. In our case, one more thing that we are talking about, when we talk digital today, we are not, digital doesn't mean direct to consumer for us. Digital means digitizing, of course, the entire value chain, whether it's bank assurance, whether it's agency, whether it's any channel. It also means being present on every platform where the consumer is there. So this is all the partnerships that we are talking about. So there are a bunch of them which are happening already, whether it's payment platforms, e-commerce platforms, banks, and that area is just exploding. And that's where we're different in PNC, because we have that ability to create micro products and go out in the market. But still, if you ask, I would bet anyone in this room on PNC, right? What's the product per consumer, right? PPC. And I don't think I'll get an answer, more than 2 if we are happy and if we're really good, right? And that's the challenge today for PNC, which is what we are trying to address through the tech stack that we have.
Yeah. Yongsheng, so you work for AIA, and for me, AIA is a kind of an example company. Sorry to provide you some big compliments like this. As part of our Model Insurer program every year, AIA submit a lot of initiatives you've implemented across Asia. And I have profiled or I have documented some of the initiatives you've done. The last one last year was about the big cloud transformation where you put all your infrastructure and systems on the cloud with China, Alibaba, etc., and the other regions. I think it was more, it was Azure, if I'm right. But if I look at what you're doing around customer interactions, using data, how you involve also your different partners, especially on the distribution side, what you've done around the infrastructure, and we talk here about the infrastructure. So more or less, how do you identify when there is a specific needs and reasons for going for such kind of projects? I understand that this is very complex because you're doing a lot of stuff, but if you have to summarize in 2 or 3 bullet points, what are the main topics to consider?
Thank you. So I think in your earlier slide, you talk about traditionally why we invest in large system changes, right? End of life, end of support, and stuff like that. But I think a lot of the panelists also talked about the evolution of the customer experience. And this is a very important point, because other than the top line, where if there's a new line of business, there's a new channel, there's also the bottom line that we often looked at in terms of how do we be more productive with the limited resources that we have. How do we scale up to be able to support a larger, say, customer base? How do we actually scale up to ensure that the end customer, be it the policyholders or whether it's the distributors, are engaged? So evolution of customer experience, I think like what was mentioned earlier, is that everyone expects a lot more, right? I mean, today is ubiquitous in terms of how we use the mobile app, in terms of how we use technology. I think in the earlier panels, we talked about Gen AI, we talked about AI, but a lot of this are built upon the foundation of technology. So I think the key part of that drives the change within AIA is where the business is going to be in the next 10 to 15 years. And that kind of set the pace in terms of where the direction would be in terms of the investment for the underlying tech.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to the second topic, which is about the approaches, alternatives to tackle this issue. Any question on this topic before we move on? If not, yeah, question.
I can start there. The approach that we have taken is retail lines of business, hollow out the core, keep the core as a system of record, because most of the innovation or the speed to market or the product combinations, right, as you can say, right, we can create, are happening more in the mid and the front office. That's very clear. Corporate lines, commercial lines, which are property, marine, engineering for us, right? These we have continued to keep in the core, because both from a velocity as well as that, the kind of details that they need. Because many times we forget that core, while we can keep it as a system of record, there's a full downstream right after this, right? There's accounting, GL, reinsurance, regulatory reporting. So that's where we try to keep both. Where speed and time to market is needed, push it up, because that's where we need faster.
But your question is actually a good transition to the next topic. So I suggest we move to the next topic and we discuss about the approaches, because we discuss about that. So if we look at the approaches, on our side, we've seen the usual development side can be internal development, and many insurance companies have batteries of developers internally that they count on, especially to build some dedicated front ends. And I like, for instance, the last question about, I think it was mentioned about using GenAI and LLM, especially for code generation, review, and testing. I think that, at least in Europe, I think that this is going to help a lot, because it's not that many developers in Europe, and they are very expensive. So this is good to change the bargaining power when it comes to discussing salaries and this kind of stuff with developers. So the development side, I will not touch the development side. The second one is replace, and then I will discuss about accelerate. But the replace is the usual and basic work of saying, okay, we need these capabilities, we've identified the different types of features, components we need, then let's go on the market and we see what are the systems available to deal with this. So this was long, at least when I started working at Celent and when I worked in insurance, these were the two main alternatives. We've seen a new alternative coming up 10 years ago, a bit less, which we call Accelerate here. It's more or less the use of low-code platform and trying to also leverage what you call middle office or middle layer. If I go through this in short, you can see that the middle layer will not necessarily replace the source of records, but just keep in place the stuff, suck the data, and then use a cloud environment in order to be faster in terms of digitizing, first creating products and digitizing the sales. The second aspect is the low-code, no-code, because more and more, of course, insurance companies want to have business people dealing with some of the changes needed as part of their processes that can be done in terms of interfaces, product configuration, etc. And we've seen a lot of newcomers, especially in the insurance industry, trying to verticalize some of their products on the low-code, no-code side in order to be able to enter this field. And the question is always the same. As part of an insurance company, you need to first figure out what are the missing capabilities, where you want to end up, and then based on this, find the right alternative, whether it's a development, whether it's an acceleration framework, or whether it's a replacement, a pure replacement of a system. We've worked with some insurance companies on this type of architecture definition and business capabilities identification. And as part of Celent, if you don't know Celent, we profile every year all the different types of systems, and we try to categorize them. It's why many insurance companies like coming to us and asking, oh, which system is able to do claims for marine, for retail products, this kind of stuff. And we have a pretty good view of the I would say the incumbents, the one that are maybe better according to us in terms of functionality or technology, etc., etc. So, but I will get back to you now in terms of the approaches. Maybe you, Yongsheng, what's your approach mainly, or do you have different approaches, or have you any kind of standard approach you'd like to focus on as part of your AIA business?
The earlier slide you talk about replace, accelerate, and build, right? So I think it really depends on the maturity of your current tech ecosystem per se. I think for us, we are quite fortunate that over the last, I've been with AIA for 13 years. So the last 13 years, we have been in different stages of transformation. So we had the fortune of being able to replace quite a few of the core legacy systems. We replaced the policy admin system, replaced the workflow and the underlying foundation pieces. But at the same time, when we talk about the middle layer, it's about what kind of services are required in the target state. Are you going to work with different distributors? For example, like digital platforms, the likes of the e-commerce platforms, for example. So how do you make yourself available in terms of services? Then you start exposing certain APIs. The traditional way of doing, for example, stop procedure or the old ESB way may not be able to work. So how do you enable some of these services to be public-facing, for example? So and with that, I think to what was mentioned earlier, the middle layers are quite important because that actually determines how you can interface with the external world moving forward. So for us, it's a combination of all.
And so if I understand well, and maybe for you, Surab, what we are talking here about is also thinking more about ecosystem and how to integrate with different partners. On the PNC side especially, this is very important. You've mentioned a middle layer or middle office approach. So are you thinking purely about ecosystem and the middle layer approach, or are you, based on different types of capabilities needed, looking at some specific, I would say, off-the-shelf components available on the market?
Sure. No, the middle layer for us is a product. We have taken Insurmo as the product. But however, what we are doing is we're using it to an extent where it provides us value from an insurance quote or policy or claims, that kind of value chain. There is obviously, when I say middle layer, there's also a custom middle layer that we have created, which is where everywhere else, right? It could be payments, it could be the third-party ecosystem, it could be risk inspection, it could be all of that. So that's also integrated. But for us, the mid office, again, is a conduit. Wherever it provides value, we use that. For us, from an engagement, platforms are very important because we want to own the data and the consumer experience. I'll explain by that. What I mean by that is it's not just partner ecosystem which is coming in through this middle office. Even the platform that we've created for direct to consumer. So, again, we are news, but you can look up like myuna.id, myuna.ph in the two countries. These are multi-tenant, multi-currency, platforms. These are direct-to-consumer platforms. But the APIs or the microservices that we have exposed have all come from that middle office layer. What it enables us to do is actually use almost an 80 to 90% reuse. This is where I think, we as insurers, we have the ability to do it again. A motor is a motor product, right, for us. A critical illness is a critical illness is a critical illness. We may think as insurers we can complicate it in any way we want, between companies, between countries. Even the sensibilities of the consumers, right, is also the same, more or less, right? Of course, there are nuances in each country, right, which are different. And hence, we are almost doing 90% reuse. That's where this layer is enabling us to do. So whether it's direct to consumer, whether it's the agency management platform, whether it's for any kind of distribution, the mid office for all retail products is the conduit for us to go. What it does is it relieves the load of the core to be used as a core system of record and for everything else that it is good at. Right? So if we have a very specific policy setup, we have a very specific contract, which is related to that motor fleet that comes in, continues to be in the core because we don't want to issue thousands and millions of policies, right, upfront. So hence it's very important as you mentioned, right, very important to know what's the business outcome, what's the driver. It's usually not a 1 on 0, as we all know. But we have to get that strategy very clear and work with business to be able to say that this is where the final value is getting generated and stick to it.
Sanjay, what about you? Is it any difference to what's been said on this topic?
No, I think I do agree, and I've seen both the approaches working in different scenarios. As sort of saying, there's no one answer. In some cases, especially in the M&A side, where you want to maintain your key core system, which you have been running and maintaining, you would like to just simply replace the new ones with this one, so that you maintain only one. Whereas, so the one which the project which I ran again was simply replace. In PNC, it's easier because the policies are short duration policies too. In life, of course, there are long tail policies. The claims can come in time. So data migration always is a challenge. So I think this approach of middle layer is a boon for some of the companies who don't want to risk data migration, because as we all know, data migration for millions of policies, old in various forms, is very difficult. So this middle layer works well. There are products also in that category now, so that makes life even more easier. You don't need to create something on your own, which some of the earlier companies try to do. So I think that's a good approach, but also it depends on the business outcome that you really want. So everybody has to assess it, pros and cons of each approach, and then take a call of their own, frankly.
Peter, as part of my activities, when I review different core systems, I tend to focus more on life, pension, health, and I know that life insurance is a bit different to what we see on the P&C side, especially on the core system. You work on the underwriting side. Underwriting is key to life insurance. It's so key that many life insurance companies, they want to go for expert system on this topic, especially the reinsurance systems, etc. And so would you say that in your business, in your experience, you have to tackle this question in a different way, like placing, for instance, some of the features and functions, especially on the underwriting side, on the top, and then see how you can acquire these kind of features and functions that maybe only exists with some of the expert systems, or maybe development, or some different alternatives are possible?
So just about, I can't think of any insurer in Australia anyway that doesn't have an underwriting rules engine. So the move to digital means you need to employ an underwriting rules engine, which is exactly that. So ask the questions of people, depending on their responses, it'll drill down and ask some more questions in the hope that the engine can provide a decision without going to a human, right, in terms of digitisation and saving costs. Obviously, that's not going to happen every single time. The more complex the medical history, the less likelihood that the underwriting rules engine is going to be able to make that decision. So having a competent underwriting rules engine is really important, especially in this digital age. Having said that, I know when I started on the underwriting transformation journey, if I had gone to my execs at the time and said, we need to replace this system and we need to do that, they would have told me to go away. So I had to find a different way of trying to work on the problem. And it's through the APIs, it's through the ecosystem, and it's through the data extraction. So from my aspect, we extracted the data from the underwriting rules engine to understand who the client was and what did they disclose. What did they say yes and no to? Every single question. We had a very old PAS, Life 3, if anybody knows it. I think there's only like 3 people left alive in Australia that know how to work it. And so we extracted data from that, and then we extracted data from the claims system. And so the goal was to overlay the 3 data sets and try to find who's more likely to claim. And that involved, we provided to the university, it was tens of millions of rows of data on spreadsheets at the time. And we provided it to them, de-identified, of course, in case anyone's concerned. And then, they got to work in terms of, okay, layer here, layer there, and then let's see what happens here. Where do I find those points where I actually have some real gems of knowledge? So as a base, absolutely, you need a really good URE. the beauty of Gen AI today, and as we move forward, is UREs, I think as Swiss Re are doing, overlaying Gen AI to augment that process. If UREs on its own, they're structured, right? You can't deviate necessarily from the question that you ask, you certainly can't deviate from that, and the responses. And they don't always fit, because people aren't very good with their own medical conditions, right? And so you need now that added layer of Gen AI to start looking at those responses and formulating what that illness is and what the outcome should be. But certainly if you want to get started, don't let systems hamper you. Find a way around it in terms of data extracts and start working with that.
Yeah, we see that more or less what's important is the data, and then based on this data, how you can improve the whole stuff, right? If I understand well, you're using Magnum or from Swiss Re? No, because...
Sorry, Lauren.
No, what's interesting is, if I'm right, Swiss Re has just launched a new AI-based underwriting system, right? So last month, if I'm right, so I still have to see it. But
Gen AI.
yeah, Gen AI, sorry. Yeah. Okay, but I think this is interesting. I think it's a lot of things happening on the underwriting side in life insurance. I think in life insurance, it's a lot of improvement on the underwriting side that can be performed by the vendors. I agree with this. Any question before we move on to the next section, and we'll have just one last topic altogether, or shall I will move on. And so the last topic is more or less, I will try to combine the two last, but talking mainly about the lessons learned when you've gone for this kind of transformation. This is a slide I have personally put together in order to summarize my experience working with insurance companies around this topic. First, the element driving insurance system modernization appetite. So at a high level, it's not going into the details as I've mentioned before, but more or less acquire specific functionality, gain flexibility, automate, very important to get the business working better, and improve technical ratios. At Celent, we have a lot of discussions with CIOs, with CTOs, with chief architects, or mainly the tech guys. And very often they forget this. And this is what counts at the end of the day, right? Insurance companies are performing some business, but also to make sure that they make money out of the risk they underwrite. So this is a very important aspect. I have just summarized here the privileged approach for this, the success factors and the technology enablers. We've talked mainly about this acceleration framework like low code, no code, or middle office, middle layer, replacement of core system, etc. But you see that the technology enablers are I would say, more various. I would say we are also talking about the cloud. We haven't talked much about the cloud, but the cloud is a huge changer. Microservices, APIs, we've mentioned APIs, but also data and how you can do a better job, and especially around pricing, around fraud mitigation, predictive analytics, in order to do a better job and have a direct influence on the technical ratios. So here I'm talking more about a specific project, but of course there is the human side behind that, right? So, because in my experience, when I see these type of programs, and sometimes they are huge, they involve multiple months, they involve a lot of data policies to be migrated, a lot of investment and effort. But if you don't have a vision, if you don't have the key sponsors, if you don't have a great change management program, it doesn't work. So maybe I will start with you, Peter. What do you think are the main success factors here? And if you have to provide recommendation to one of the insurance company based here in the room, what would it be?
Yeah, I think I'll go back to what I said before about why transformations fail, and only 37% of them actually succeed. I think you got to frame the problem, right? What is the problem you're trying to solve? Is really important. People then need to buy into that problem. They often say, what's the WIFM? And WIFM stands for what's in it for me. What do I need to change if I'm okay? I'm okay. Well, what do I need to change? So people need to understand what's in it for me. What do I need to change? And probably the biggest takeaway really is any change program, you're going to have people who resist you, who resist the change. So you need to build a coalition and you need to build allies in the business. So it can't just be you going, this is a great idea. You need to convince other people it's a great idea, who then convince the next lot of people it's a great idea, and all of a sudden you spread the good news, so to speak, to get that transformation across. That would be my biggest takeaway.
But just to summarize, so for you, because you're talking about failure, I like being more positive and say, well, on a success. But for failure, what you're saying is more or less this is mainly human, right? So technology is seldom a problem, right?
Technology is never the issue, it's people. Yeah.
Thank you.
I love people, by the way, but sometimes AI and robots would be better, huh?
Yeah, thank you. Sanjay.
Yeah, I do agree, but for these kind of programs, either you replace or do a middle tier kind of program. They are going to be a kind of a multi-year program, especially for life companies, where a lot of data has to be migrated. So I think first is such kind of a program where there's a humongous change management is required. I would not start that program unless I have the sponsorship from the highest level. The CEO has to commit to it, review it on a regular basis. Otherwise, this program is going to be a failure. So, so that kind of a serious sponsorship and followed by a very strong change management program, which Peter was talking about, champions to be created across those kind of initiatives. And from a project point of view, it's a large program. A proper, I've seen people taking shortcuts here and there in terms of doing it faster or those kind of things. So proper planning has to be in place, and I think somewhere in your slides you have rightly put in the quality part. I think people should not forget about the quality part, even if it takes more time to execute the final or come up with the final project. Don't forget the quality part, especially in the case of data migrations. Don't take a chance. This can hit you 2 years down the line. Even if you have gone live very fine now, everything working, 2 years down the line, you can have some or other issue coming up, and I've seen that happening. So no chances to be taken around that. So I think if you do that, with proper planning, I think we can actually be on the 37% you're talking about. I think that's possible.
Yeah. Thank you. Saurabh, one thing that has been quickly mentioned by Sanjay is more or less dealing with all the different parties involved in a project like this. It can be pretty big, right? So we are talking about third-party integrators. We are talking sometimes about your own developers, the business side, the project manager on the vendor side. If it's a specific component to be implemented, also there are some people that you have to deal with on one or two or three vendor sides. So how do you see, I don't know whether you have had experience already to deal with so many players in such a implementation, but if yes, so can you give us some recommendations how to manage these kind of relationships?
I was tempted to say that we don't have those problems, but of course we do, right? As I said, right, we are an M&A model, so we have already 2 countries and we acquired these companies, right? These are insurance OEMs. But even prior, with Allianz and others, I had that experience. But look, end of the day, I think our model and what we have seen is people are very reasonable. They are unreasonable, but they're still very reasonable if you can appeal to their senses. So we try to take a very a rational approach to say what's in it for me, what's in it for them, what's in it for the partner, and take a commercial lens. See, usually tech does not take a very commercial lens. What I mean by commercial lens is not how much we'll spend, but what's the outcome. Is it going to impact my GWP? Is it going to impact my loss ratio? Is it going to impact my consumer experience? Be absolutely crystal clear about it as we commit. And the second thing that we have seen is ideas are aplenty, strategies are great. Where it falls off is as we start implementing it. And this is where the people angle comes in. Because for us, as group office, right, to try and implement or think about these bright ideas, big ideas, and then say, yes, let's go ahead and do it. But the country teams, do they really get it, right? I visit even branches, even though I'm a tech person, but since I understand the P&L, having run P&Ls, I actually go and see what's the real, end user, the smile on the face of that end user is what finally matters. If we have a mechanism to do that, right, and then pull in the right levers and the right approaches, I think humans are reasonable.
Yeah. And on the AIS side, I remember well in different case studies I've written about your initiatives that where you were pretty strong at is the definition of governance and how people need to behave and help bring their inputs and insights on the project. So would you say that this is also a key success factor mainly on your side, or would you add something else?
Yeah, so I think the co-panelists did talk about people, and people needs to be brought along the journey, right? I think we often forget that through whether it's transformation, whether it's simple automation, or whether it's Gen AI or stuff like that, people's lives are impacted, right? And that once you're able to start with the why, bringing them along the journey, you have a higher chance of success. And often when we talk about sponsorship, that's important. You talk about having the SMEs, the right people in the project team, having the right investments, having even the business outcome. But I think having the why being cascaded throughout the organization, I think that's important. So when we talk about strategy, it's not about a very nice PowerPoint where you pin on the board, but having often that conversation with everyone, right, within organizations in terms of where the organization will be in 10 years' time, 15 years' time, working together with HR in terms of the people side of things, so that they are not uncomfortable with the change. So they'll be comforted to know that even with automation, once this happens, maybe their old ways of working is gone, right? But the new way, they could learn a new skill, they could be an advisor to a different project. So putting that at ease, I think, to me, is the crux of all successful transformation program. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Is it any question before we close the session? Okay, so I think we've reached the top of the hour anyway. This is 4, and I'm sure that some people would like to get a coffee outside or somewhere else. Again, we'll try to get back to you with the slide deck if we can get the list of the people who have attended this session. And otherwise, I'm sure that we'll have the chance to meet during the next 2 days. If you want to meet with us, do not hesitate also to contact also with the people here. And I want to thank you for your great input. Thank you.